Okay, folks, welcome back. I'm going to do a little bit of painting here. Attempt to do a little bit of painting. We'll see how it works. We'll see who comes by and says hello. All right, well, now I got to get my stuff back out because what I was working on ended up getting packed away. Because we used it in the game yesterday. That is the gates. The gates to Gaslands. All right, here we go. Let's get all these barriers on here. We're working on the yellow. And Mitch helped me solve something. Kind of. He gave you an idea of something and helped me think outside the box. Because these things are actually pretty top heavy. For whatever reason, they're a little top heavy, so you don't want to be in the middle of gameplay and they fall over. It's just annoying to have inanimate things that want to get all uppity. Alright. Okay. So we got our yellow craft paint. We got our raw sienna. And that's what we're going to work with. All right, so we have a couple of these that we have finished. These are all made out of MDF stuff, and this is pretty close to what they're going to end up looking like. And originally they were just, the color of clipboards, basically. So we've got 20 of these to do. And see, there's a perfect example. I moved it over, and it wants to lay down. So the first thing I thought of is, okay, let me put some weight down here. And he's like, no, put like a fishing weight or something back there. And I'm like, I got better than that. They make these strip weights that are for like Pinewood Derby. I keep calling them soapbox derby. No, Pinewood Derby, like the stuff that the Boy Scouts do. They do stuff like that. And they make a set of weights that you can just, you can break off. And I'll just glue some back here and then paint over them like it's part of this, and that's just going to be enough to hold it in place. Because he ended up putting like a die, just a plastic die back here. That was enough to keep it from falling over. Not a single one fell over. But hey, what's up, Jimmy? So yeah, so we're just going to continue painting the yellow with an El Cheapo craft paint, which everybody's yellow covers like crap. And I use terrain. I don't usually use any of the good paints, and none of the good paints you're going to see up here. They're just too expensive to replace. I go through too much of it. So today was your birthday. Happy birthday. Hopefully you didn't have to work. I know year before last, I was like, man, I'm not going to work on my birthday. And it was the best decision I made until I went back to work. And I had to fix everything that went bad on one day. I think this last year was like a Wednesday or something like that, so it didn't really work for that. Happy birthday. Thanks for sharing your birthday with me. Now you do need to behave on here. I decided to go back here to do a vertical scene, start doing stuff vertically again. Because, I don't know, some of this might appeal to somebody. I don't know, but we need to get a little bit of water. Let's get a little bit of water here. We'll use one of these containers. I had a really good session the other night. I wasn't expecting that. All right. Nope. We gotta get the readers out. Got old vision now, unfortunately. All right, so we're going to make a mix here with about that much raw sienna and a little bit more yellow. And then we're going to come in and all we're going to do is, yep, that's about where we want it to be. We're going to shade over this. So I don't really mind that yellow does not cover really well because my painting style uses lots of layers anyways. So it's really not an issue for me. It's more of an issue, does the paint clump up, that kind of stuff. And everybody's yellow cover is terrible. Whether it's a Vallejo, whether it's the Army Painter. The Games Workshop one used to cover better than any of the other ones, but I'm not a huge fan of their bottles. I don't want some kind of bottling device that your paint ends up drying on you before you get a chance to use most of it. There was one company that I had paint from, this one hobby store that we used to visit in Tampa. We'd take road trips in the '90s to go to, and it was this paint called Howard Hughes, and it came in these really pretty big tubs, almost like the size of Tamiya paint. It was acrylic paint, and it almost smelled like well, it smelled really pleasant, but it almost was like a paste. And yeah, its longevity wasn't great. You leave it alone for like a year, come back to use it, not usable. But we did play our first game of Gaslands in 7 years last night. We did a really very easy refresher course. We just took two cars each, and they were just regular cars. They had like a heavy machine gun in the front and a machine gun in the back. Put up a little course, and it seemed like a new game, like I'd never played the game before. But all we got to do is play it monthly, and I think it'll be stuck in my brain, especially for me because I'm not gonna be playing something else. That's all I'm gonna play, miniatures wise, for the time being. Okay, so that's all we're gonna do. We're gonna bring it up to this. So I, this is how we did the other one the other morning. See, there were some that we had to stop and go to work. Two. This is, yeah. See, these little bastards like to fall over. Yeah. Okay. The people get it. They understand. So we'll get everything up to this step. I won't have to buy any more barriers. These I bought them a long time ago. They came. I don't even know what the name of the company is. The people that the Phalanx something, or sold them, but it's actually not theirs. The Phalanx Consortium. I feel like it's something like that. I don't know. They got like a little Spartan guy as their logo. It's a pretty cool logo. But now there's all kinds of stuff that's available on Etsy, on eBay. All that kind of stuff. So people are probably thinking, if craft paint doesn't cover really well, why the hell are you cutting it with water? Flow. You don't want it to clump. That's like the worst thing you can do is have it clump. Because it'll look lumpy, and on top of that, it still won't cover well. And they don't all have to be perfectly the same color. I tend to mix things. I don't do the whole triad thing where we're going to use this color first and then we're going to go over on this one and that one. I think that the differences in color can be too dramatic if you do that. And I'm so used to layering, mixing my colors and layering, that it's almost like second nature. And it's relaxing, you know. It's relaxing because I don't have a time frame of when I have to have this done by. If I had to get this done by, tomorrow, yeah, I'd be stressed out, but I don't really want to work on a hobby where it's like, being dictated to have it done by a certain time. But I've pretty much given up on doing this after work or in the mornings. And I had a pretty successful one earlier this week. But that all depends on you guys, interaction and stuff. You know, I can sit here and talk to myself, and, you know, like once I run out of caffeine, it's game over. That's the old one. Add more of this, add more of that. But the game went, it was off to a really rough start. And then we looked a couple things up, and then they kept happening, and we were in pretty good shape. So Mitch plays all kinds of stuff, but I'm just going to stick to this for the time being. Okay, there's that one. I don't know exactly how many that is. That are complete. 4. That one's not done. Ooh. I'm gonna have to go grab a couple sodas here in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Be right back. Welcome, Maylin Lores Martinez. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So yeah, I needed to play the game to realize, okay, I'm going to build some of these cars. Like, I don't want to build them in a way that they don't make sense with the points. You know? So, and I'm pretty sure when I run it, I'm gonna provide all the cars. I mean, I've put together like 200 tanks in a year and a half. I think I can build, you know, a dozen cars and stay on track. I just got to paint them in the same way that that I do the vehicles. In other words, so you're not spending, you know, an eon on each. Because I painted some, but I took way too long to paint them. And I probably don't want anybody touching them either. They're way too good. You know, with the layering and stuff, it just takes a long time. They don't need to look that. And they don't have any rust, or they're not like beat up, you know, junkyard relic type things. But that's not why. That's why I did not want to rename my channel into a World War II exclusive channel. I mean, even though that's pretty much all I've been doing the last 2 years. Because if I go and I want to do something different, like, hey, why do you have a World War II channel, but you're doing stuff for car wars type of stuff? And I said, well, almost everybody that I know that has some kind of a YouTube channel that I watch, does some kind of hobbying kind of thing, they're always into multiple things. And almost everyone that I know that's into historical stuff almost always does some form of science fiction. I don't know why. I don't know why science fiction is so appealing. I guess you could say Gaslands is science fiction, but I don't consider it science fiction. Science fiction, I envision stuff that involves, aliens and shit like that. Other multiple planets and aliens. That's science fiction to me. If it takes place on this Earth, it's not science fiction-y enough for me to consider it to be science fiction. So science fiction stuff, I don't play any of it. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't build anything of it. But I think science fiction is just really hard to. How's this going to look when I do? Try to even this out. All right, this one. Yeah, this will look okay. We need to get them all to the same base, more or less. This one wasn't covering really well when I was doing it before. So you go to like one of these historical game conventions that I go to, and there's people that put on science fiction games. You go to a science fiction convention, nobody puts on anything historical. The overlap doesn't work the other way around. Seems like it. Okay. Good. That one's more about where it needs to be. And I do want it to look like it's, like somebody painted it with a brush. They're just really small people that did it. Yeah. I generally don't assembly line things, but these are a bunch of things that we want them to look relatively the same, relatively similar. But I ended up having kind of a rough day at work. And I'm like, all right, well, after work, I'm going to go to the local Walmart, one of them. Not because I like going to Walmart, but it's an option for what I'm going to do, and go look at die-cast cars. And I spent probably 30 minutes looking through everything they had, and it had a really good time. I would have been perfectly happy not buying any. It was just fun seeing what they have. And it was also kind of quiet back there. It wasn't, screaming kids throwing balls or something like that. So I just realized, anytime I go to that store, I ought to just go and see what they have. If I find a die-cast car, it's a freaking dollar. Like, I can think that's a hell of a lot better than buying a damn lottery ticket. Not that I buy lottery tickets. I don't, but... All right, this one. I can think of a lot worse ways to spend a dollar. Can't really buy much for one any of these, anyways. Now we're going to try to get all of these to this point, to where these are right now, and then we'll cut for the night. You know, there might be quicker ways to paint this, but this is going to look good up close too. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, don't get the camera too close. It doesn't look good. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I don't believe in the, hey, make it look good from 3 feet away. I'm like, I'm naturally nearsighted, man, and I have to blindfold myself. Like, I'd see all the errors. I'd see all the mistakes, all the shortcuts. It's normally later than I would, if I was going to paint this evening, I would have already started by now, but got late coming in a little bit. So this is one that had a previous color already on it. We may need to dial this back down a level, kind of to where it was previously, and then bring it up with this yellow. Vasislos, welcome, Kevin. Oh, I never watched that video you sent me. Damn it, I forgot. I don't know what that video is. I did read the title. It's not something. It's not something that's gonna piss me off. I think you probably figured. I think you probably figured that out by watching me enough times that I'm not one of those tenders. Those tender people. Oh man. But yeah, I get in the habit of just kind of doing my thing, and and not watching. My daughter sends me stuff on Instagram, and sometimes I forget to look at it. I'm really bad about watching people that I'm subscribed to on YouTube. I mean, I probably spent 3 or 4 years, maybe not 4, 2 years probably not watching 3D Bot Maker. And now I'm caught up on his latest thing. That's a shame that I should not be caught up on that. That is literally the best thing out there on YouTube. There's nothing I've enjoyed watching on YouTube as much as his videos. It's really pretty amazing. Regardless of whether or not they're, edited after the fact, the talking, the commentating is happening, after the race is done, which it has to be. It's really, really funny. You watch that stuff. You're into cars and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I went to Walmart. I had to go pick up some soap or something like that. I said, well, I'm going to go check out some die-cast cars. And I spent about 30 minutes back there. I guess I just lost track of time. I literally was looking through everything. Wasn't looking to buy anything, just seeing what's out there. Because there's a lot of things that'll get, they bring out new series every year, and sometimes they just have different paint jobs, and and some things are discontinued. Like the last time I bought them was probably 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, and there's some body styles that aren't available anymore. So you can go online and you can see what's coming up. What kind of what vehicles are in the 2025 set. And, it doesn't mean you're going to find those out in the peg, but there's a chance of finding it on the peg. You're not going to find any earlier vehicles on, in Walmart or something like that if they're from a previous year. They're just going to rotate their stock and stuff like that. But you're into them, yeah. I'm not into anything that I buy and don't take out of the package. That's just not me. If you're into action figures, I'm not. I used to when I was a kid. I wouldn't let's keep them in the package and not use them. That's like buying a gun and not shooting it. Buying a car, don't driving it. I'm like, it's just not me, Take care of it, obviously, but, don't roughhouse it, but, there's no point in keeping things in the package. Except for, I did buy 3. Because I'm like, shit, I'm there. And I mean, I pulled out okay, these 12 look good. I'm not ready to get that, work on those cars yet, that kind of thing. But I really need to order weapons is what I need to do because I'm out. And there's a lot of people that do weapons now. And they got to have weapons. But we had to play a game just to kind of see how things worked. And, it's a fun, goofy little game. I think it's probably more enjoyable for me because I'm going to get a chance to build the cars and play the game. The other guys will probably just be playing the game and, I don't know, painting the cars and coming up with crazy names for the drivers and the cars is going to be definitely the thing I'm looking forward to the most. So, but, you're almost better off going on eBay, finding the car you want, and just buying it. And yeah, you're going to pay, unless you want to get something that's limited edition, which I don't know why you would, but most cars are available by the time you add shipping about $6. You could pretty much buy any car you want for like $6. There's a lot of cars that are available for under $2, and the shipping's about $5 or so. Some of them even less than that. Because, if you're already in the store, okay, check out the die-cast car section, but going to a bunch of different stores just to come up empty-handed is a waste of time and fuel, But we do need to get guns. All we did was we ran 2 cars. They each had a heavy machine gun to the front and just a regular machine gun to the back. And that's it. That's all we did. And we ran around a course and we crashed a lot. Some crashed more than others. Mitch crashed more than I did a little bit. But it was mainly just to familiarize yourself with the rules again. And it almost felt like a new game. And the difference is it's been 7 years since I played it before. And it also been the guy who was kind of running the game, Scott, is not with us anymore. No, he didn't die. He just went back to Ohio. Which means I'm going to see him less often than if he was dead. What? No, he was the one that was kind of took point. The way I took point on DBA, he took point on that. So, actually, I got into it. He's like, hey, you mind if I buy the rules from you and I'll run the game? Because he was really interested in it. I'm like, yeah. So I sold him my rules and the what do you call those? The templates, and he was the main guy on the scene. But I've never actually played with any of the vehicles that I've modified. But I got to come up with a quicker way to modify them because I can't spend 18 hours on one vehicle. I just wouldn't get any vehicles painted. They look great. It's not like they don't look good, but it's like, we need more vehicles than one, or a couple. So, but we're going to modify the game as we see fit. If something doesn't make sense, we're not going to play it that way. Now, with that said, it's probably something that's just freaking wrong. Like, we didn't encounter anything yesterday that needed to be changed. We'll run the rules as written. Like the whole teams thing, the sponsors, I don't know that if we'll do that, and if we do, the teams won't be called what the teams are called, because it's not creative enough. See, this is this insolent falling over, like the slow ass dominoes. I'm gonna get a little strip of something heavy there, and put it. I used to get Hot Wheels ID cars. They're about $7. They have a chip in them, so you can scan the car into an online game. Was the game worth playing, or is it just something to do? Kind of like Skylanders, but for cars. Skylanders is a video game that they don't make it anymore, but I used to play it with my daughter. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, we started playing it again. But it's a kid's game where you get like these action figures that are really well painted. They don't move, so I guess they're not action figures. They're figurines of the character, and there's a chip in them that stores basically like their save information. And the actual miniatures, the figures look really good the way they're painted. Like, it's pretty impressive. Probably the same thing with the cars, right? You buy, a car looks a certain, you buy this car, scan it, and then you can use it in the game, and it looks like this. That's pretty cool. Are there any cars you dislike? I guess something to do. You raced your car around a track. Are there any cars like you go collect cars and you go, oh, I don't do Mustangs, or I don't do something like that? Is there something that you like? I'm not buying, because there's people that are like really like anti against certain brands. I'm anti certain brands of the real car. Like, there's certain real cars I wouldn't buy, but a toy car, like, what's wrong with you? It's a toy car. One is just as reliable as the other. And they had these big sets that were kind of done on the cheap, of sets of 8, or sets. I think they had sets of 5, sets of 8, and sets of 20, and they're still about $1 a piece. So like, why would I want, like, I like that car, I like that one, I like that one. What am I going to do with the other 17 that don't drive me crazy? Like, that set's not for me. Now, a lot of those sets come with cheaper versions, I suspect. None that I can think of. Yeah, me neither. Even some that are wild probably would work really good for this game to modify them. So, what was I going to say? So you look at this set of 20, and you look at them like, a lot of these have like, they're not all die cast. I mean, maybe the frame, maybe this part is die cast, but the actual hull is made of plastic. This one's actually the opposite. This is a plastic frame with the metal hull. But a lot of those, like, would come with like a set, and like, man, those are plastic bodies. So the problem with a plastic body is you're not going to be able to strip the paint. The good thing about the plastic body is you don't have to use a drill, a high-powered drill, to modify it. I mean, I did not enjoy doing the stuff with the Dremel this last weekend. I felt like I was doing something wrong. I felt like I was like playing with like, I was a bucket of gasoline and a match over here, and I had to be really conscious of keeping them away from each other. It was scary. Nothing happened, but I was worried about that a little too much. I don't want to lose a finger, get injured, or I don't want to get into one of those lathe accidents. Man, I came across that this morning. Apparently, there's some lathe accident where some guy in Russia gets consumed by a lathe. And it took a little bit of time to find the video. It's a gruesome video. But, it's like one of those things that, you got to see. It's like somebody died in a gruesome way. I got to see to make sure that doesn't happen to me kind of thing, Not that I'm ever near a lathe, but, I'm careful not to lose a finger or, use eye protection, that kind of stuff. But, drilling out these rivets. Is it rivets? Well, whatever. Drilling those things out on the cars, that's like the most dangerous thing I do. It's way too dangerous. So, haven't had an accident doing it, but I'm extremely conscious of it. I would probably avoid any vehicles that have tires that are not painted in a traditional color. Like, there's some vehicles out there that are way out there, okay? But let's see, I probably have one of them. And I mean, honestly, I don't know how the hell these things cost $1. They're works of art for $1. See if I got something that's outlandish. Well, this one's pretty outlandish. No, that's... Jesus. This. This is kind. It's a make-believe vehicle, some kind of truck. But it doesn't have tires that are white, right? Like they're still black colored, right? Or they're not like light blue or anything like that. That's a problem, because then you got to paint that over. I wish there was a bigger variety in wheels, but almost all these vehicles have what I would call racing slicks. That's what they're for. They're for sliding them down there. So, yeah, this has a plastic body, so all these graphics and everything probably can't remove. Maybe you have mineral spirits or something like that, but I have problems with colored tiles as well. Yeah, that's just a little too far. Like, there was a vehicle that was like what I come across when I was looking through was like a taco truck, right? There's one that was like a taco delivery truck. Well, that's perfect for my Mexican gangs, right? But then there was one that was a taco truck that literally was a taco. Almost like, you've seen the Wienermobile from Oscar Mayer. Like that, but with a taco. I'm like, okay, that's stupid. All right, that's like ridiculous. Or like one that was like a go-kart with like an 8-ball on it. With like literally an 8-ball with an 8. Like, okay, what purpose does that have? But like I've got like this little thing. There are some things that are, pretty crazy. Like this guy's got a bunch of bottles in it. It's going to be a big ball top cocktail throwing van. And there's the little bottles. I have to pop them out because I don't think I want to modify them a little bit. I'm probably going to tint them green so it looks like the old Coca-Cola bottles. Where's the one that's the freaking toilet? There's one that's literally a toilet. Here it is. I believe it's called Gotta Go. It's ridiculous. It has a toilet. Well, I'm going to put something in there that looks like it's got a full load on the toilet, and that's going to be some kind of weapon that it pours behind it. So, so that's silly, but it's useful on there. So, yeah, there's some things that are like way over the top. I don't mind if they're make believe vehicles. As a matter of fact, I picked up this Japanese car. I'm like, man, I've never heard of this brand before, and it was apparently a make believe Japanese car. I forget what the hell it was, but I had to look it up. Like, I'd never heard of it before. But it's something to do, It's cheap. Doesn't cost you anything to go look through them. And if you decide to buy something, it doesn't cost you anything to buy them either. I mean, pretty much, they're damn near free, I pretty much wouldn't buy like 12 of them just because I don't want to get consumed by them and have too many of them. As a matter of fact, Mitch offered, he said he had some more he collected. He wanted to give me the ones he had, and I didn't take him up on them. I got like, let me finish what I have before I get more. Hot Wheels goes weird sometimes. That one with the 8-ball is like the one that you ask you a question, right? It has a window on the bottom that gives answers. You're right. Yep. I remember the first time I encountered one of those. They had them in the service merchandise in the late 70s in Alabama. We lived in northern Alabama for 3 years. And you go to service merchandise, they had a good toy section there. And I never had one of those 8-balls. You ask a question, but I know exactly what that is. It's exactly what it looks like. Yeah. Yeah, that's like, ridiculous. Or, what's even worse than that is, and I was talking about this the other day, these things are nominally 1/64th scale, okay? Now, you take something like this, and we'll call this this is a 1935 Cadillac, is what it says it is, right? And then you've got this Mini Cooper, all right? Now, I can tell you right now, if this is 1/64th, the Mini Cooper is not 1/64th. The Mini Cooper is probably closer to like, 1/58th or something like that. It's bigger than it should be. Or maybe this is, close to 1/70th scale or something like that. But regardless, they're close-ish, okay? So they're not like absurd, okay? Hot Wheels will make stuff like a scooter, right? And the scooter is like the size of this and like this wide. So like, like a 1/48th or a even like a Warhammer guy would ride on it or something like that. If it came with a person, that's useless to have those kind of things that you can't, even as a kid, you wouldn't want to play with a fucking scooter that's as big as a car. Like, it doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't make sense to me as a kid. Sorry, I thought about those things as a kid. These two are okay. Same thing. I don't have a problem mixing 1/64th scale vehicles with 1/72nd tanks. So those things I would just completely ignore. I'm not buying that. Maybe it appeals to somebody else, but I'll tell you what, as expensive as cars have become since COVID, that's about the only time you can afford to get a new car is go and get a Hot Wheels one. Real cars are just absurd. But there's a couple of flea markets. And by flea market, I actually mean one that has like booths, like almost like little booths, but they're almost like little stores. I wouldn't mind perusing a couple of them. But the people, if they've got, because there's a lot of die-cast stuff in those places. But, I don't want to pay more than $2 for a car. And they're going to want like, $7 for a car. I'm like, well, for that, I'll just go to eBay. I can get anything for $7. Anything within reason. Like, I'm going to repaint them, so I don't give a shit what the paint job is. Like, there's one vehicle that I came across, and I would have picked it up, except that, and it was a vehicle that was in the same situation that the Mini Cooper's in. In other words, it was a vehicle that was a lot bigger in real life than it would have been had it actually been 1/64th scale. And it was I don't remember what it's called. I would not have known what this vehicle is had I not seen it on the card. And the vehicle's a BMW, what they call it, a BMW 2000. And if you don't know what a BMW 2000 is, I didn't know what a BMW 2000 is by name. It's that BMW from the 1970s that has the front of it that's it's scooped back a little bit. It's got the round headlights. It's a cool looking vehicle. Kind of boxish shaped. It's a perfect vehicle for my German themed team. Perfect vehicle. But they had it in a color changers. Okay? So like it just has a color changing paint scheme. Well, I'm paying now 4 times as much for a paint scheme I'm going to strip and or paint over. Like, so I don't want that version of it because it's stupid. It's like it's a waste of that. The slot cars went way up in price during COVID. Fun to do at home alone. My only experience with, and you've probably heard me talk about this, my only experience with slot cars. Well, first of all, when you're a kid, and I'm talking like 7 or 8 years old, that's when I got it. I didn't understand how slot cars work. Like, okay, you got a track, and you got a joystick. We'll call it a joystick with a gradiated on-off. Basically, there's no power. As soon as you squeeze on it, it starts getting more power, goes faster, faster, faster. You let go of it. I'm like, why wouldn't you just hold it down all the way? Well, you have to let it go on the turns. You don't know that as a fucking kid. Or I didn't know that as a kid. So I'm like, this has no steering. Anyways, I liked it. I don't remember who made the set. Probably Tyco. Probably some Tyco thing like that. And it came with 2 cars. I don't know if it was like a figure 8 or something like that. It's probably a figure 8 with an overlap. Almost all of them have that. Like a figure 8 that doesn't run into itself kind of thing. Not like a figure 8 that you do like bus demolition derby or something like that. And it came with 2 cars. It came with a Spider-Man car that was like a little roadster or something. And it was decorated like Spider-Man. Nothing any Spider-Man would have ever used. It was just a Spider-Man themed roadster looking paint job thing on it. And this other black van that all it said on it was villain. It had silver, I believe it was silver letters that said villain on the side of the van. It's like one size fits all, It's like, hey, I want to play the villain. I don't give a shit. You're driving in that car, kind of thing. And it never worked well. It never worked consistently, And I think it had some kind of an overlap, so you could they could crash into each other if if your timing was off or something. But that was slot cars that were this size. They were the same size as 1/64th. So, as a matter of fact, the internet is a powerful thing. Let's see if I can find it. Slot car set, 1970s, Spider-Man villain. I think I just found it. And the internet is it is so powerful. It was something like this. It was something like, I don't make this shit up, man. It was something like that. That van looks a lot like it. Now, this claims it's Matchbox Speed Track slot car, Spider-Man. The Spider-Man car doesn't look that familiar with this thing is taking a fall. Let's visit this and see what the rest of the parts look like. Yeah, I guess it was Matchbox. Yeah, this thing's been through hell. Yep, there it is. That's the set I had. Here's the BMW 2000. That square looking car. So if I have to repaint it, because I don't think there's a way that I can keep the graphics and somehow make them look worn. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work with doing that. It's just easier just to pull it apart. Everything went up in price during COVID, and it's never going to come back down. And not only did everything go up in price during COVID, everything went up in price, and companies cut every corner imaginable to reduce cost. So you're paying more for something shittier. And that's the big problem I have with it. I don't have a problem with the rising, well, I do, but it is what it is. But the shittier product is not cool. You're going to pay more for a shittier product. Same thing with restaurants. Now you're paying more for the restaurant. Food's not as good. The service isn't as good, and it went up in price, so now you got to tip more. Maybe not percentage-wise. You still tip the same percentage-wise, but you're given more of a tip. Your $30 meal is now $50. So if you're doing 20%, now you're tipping $10 instead of $6. It's just annoying shit like that. Matchbox slot cars aren't the best. Oh, I'm sure not. But it's like for fucking kids. In the 1970s, I don't know. Probably somebody got it for me at Montgomery Ward or something like that. I don't know. Remember that? Remember those guys? We didn't have a Montgomery Ward in Florida, but we did in Alabama. It's funny because the thing I remember about that place is there was this area where they would sell fans. Like fans that you'd put in your garage or maybe somewhere in your house. And you have them all lined up and they'd all be on and they'd all have them little strips of like material, whether it was little frayed pieces of like aluminum colored things. So they would all be flapping in the wind. They have them all turned on. They'd all be flapping. The things you remember as a kid. Luckily, I don't remember all the weird shit people wore back then. Because, man, clothes from the 70s, you had to be on some of them drugs. I think most artwork type things aren't as good anymore. Artistry has declined. There is some things that, yes and no. I think some things that are shitty, some people accept as being decent art, and I don't. I just flat out tell you. There's some amazing art stuff out there. And there's some amazing art stuff out there that is made by, and I don't mean AI. I mean that's done on computer. That a human does on computer. That's really good look. I don't do that kind of stuff because, I'm not a tech junkie kind of thing. But there's some good looking. My artistry has improved a lot in the last 10 years. And that's only from sharing stuff with other people online, getting ideas, giving them ideas, just from the shared experience of it all. I think my painting and stuff has improved threefold, maybe double, And hey, I like seeing something I like better than my own stuff. Because I'm like, well, screw this. I'm turning my shit up to an 11. It's like, it's motivating. Maybe it's discouraging for some people, but it isn't for me. I'll get discouraged like how much effort it takes to put on a freaking game. And I'm exhausted from work. Last thing I want to do is do all the heavy lifting for a game. No, we need a little bit more brown in there. Cover a little bit more. there's some art stuff that, I know it's subjective, but there's just some stuff that just didn't take them a lot of time to put that out. Can I say it that way? Nobody gets their fantasies and panties in a wrap. Mad Magazine has been re-released. Crap. Well, I never played the original one. I never read the original one. That guy with the gap in my teeth just kind of drove me crazy, And focusing all on that. But my daughter, when she was in Spain, ended up going to a museum, a modern museum of art. And she's like, she sends me a text while she's there. It's like, Dad, you'd have a field day here. And she's sending me pictures. And the problem is that there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't take a lot of effort to make. And you just can't put it in the same category. Like, let's say, for instance, you come to my channel, you look at my stuff, and you just absolutely don't like the way I paint. Doesn't matter. That's how I like to paint. Makes me happy. You want to paint a different way. That's cool too. All right. But you absolutely do not like how I paint. You can at least say, even if you don't like how I paint, that I'm putting a lot of effort in doing it. It's not like spray paint one color, dry brush one color, done. No, we're putting effort into it. You can't compare this, whether you like the style or not, to somebody that just spray paints it and dips it and they're done. You just can't compare those two things. So you can't compare, a piece of artwork that's in a museum, even if it's a style that I don't particularly like, that takes a while to do, as somebody who's, slinging paint at a canvas. You just can't compare those two things. Regardless of whether or not, you don't think it's art, it doesn't matter what you think it is. You can't compare something that takes thousands of hours to do to something that takes 30 freaking seconds, And then the people that, it doesn't matter whether you like it or not, it's just, they're trying to figure it out. Oh, well, yeah, he slung it in this way because his mind was in turmoil. It's like, all right, get off those fucking drugs, folks, Even if you take something that's painted super basic, like by a child, that looks like it's been painted by a child. Matisse, okay? Matisse, everything that I've seen by Matisse, like 7th graders can do. I'm sorry, I meant to say 7-year-olds. But at least you can tell it's a fucking chair, right? At least like, that's a chair, that's a table, a lamp, okay, a window. All right, we know what this is, right? I've seen better windows and chairs and lamps and windows. So when I see artwork that I really like, when I go to a museum, I try to get really in there. I try putting my readers on, because I can't take my contacts out because I wouldn't be able to find my way out of the museum. But I put my readers on and I try to look and see where the brushstrokes is and kind of deconstruct the way they constructed it to see how they, and it's cool. I enjoy that part, even if it's something that I don't really like the subject matter, But there's some computer generated stuff that I don't have the talent pool to do that. That is truly amazing. Now, I don't know how much of a crutch it is. Like people that do stuff digitally, they have the advantage that if they fuck it up, right? They can just go, back, right? And they don't lose anything. Whereas some painting isn't that forgiving. Watercolors, which my daughter does, is really unforgiving. Much more unforgiving than this. I can fix stuff all day long, but watercolors, you're done. So maybe because people don't read the paper anymore. No, I'm sure some people read the paper, but speaking of reading the paper, one thing that bugs the living hell out of me is you end up looking at a news story, and they do this in the paper, and they also do this online. Like you can go and look at the local newspaper what their online version is. They do this all the time, and they'll start some story. Orlando, Florida, and they put Florida, FLA. We have not used the three-letter abbreviations for Florida since probably 1980. You know, that just bugs the hell out of me that you do stuff like that. I haven't been to a museum in a long time. The Louvre. Yeah, it's weird spelled. It's Louvre or something like that. Yeah, my daughter went to it recently, and she was trying to give me like pointers to look things up, and I was surprised how few things they had there. I didn't go, but I went to their website to see where some of the more famous things are. I was surprised how few things I actually recognized that were there. You know, you got the Mona Lisa, right? You got the painting that the coronation of Napoleon, right? You've got, I believe that one's there. The French Lady Liberty from the French Revolution, that one's there, and maybe one other thing. That's the only thing I recognized. I didn't recognize anything else. I figured, okay, well, the Gaudin guy is there. You know, the thinking sculpture guy, right? Which sculpture stuff is, in my opinion, better than anything else. You go somewhere and it's got all those busts of Romans. Like, there's nothing better than that. I mean, that's just freaking amazing. I don't know if that looks exactly like those people, but that looks like a person looks like, you know? And, like, that's unforgiving. Like, oop, I cut too much of them. Well, I guess we'll have to make them look differently. That's amazing, and considering how long ago it was. Unfortunately, it's just black and white-ish. You know, it's just, it's marble and marble colored, you know? But I was surprised how few things I recognized that were in the Louvre. Very, very few things that I recognized that were there. Just by looking at examples of, I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before. Never seen this before. Now, when I went to El Prado, the one in Madrid, I recognized so many things. And a lot of it is because, you know, okay, like I'm interested in the Renaissance stuff, like the history stuff, and there's so much of that there, you know. So, yeah, she said it was super crowded. But that's cool that I got a kid that goes to the art museum. Although I really would like to go to the Met with her and like we can go there and laugh at shit, you know. But we have a modern art museum here in town that I had to go to it when I was taking not humanities. What the hell is it called? I took an art appreciation class or whatever, and you had to go there and you had to find something and then write. So I forget what the hell the assignment was, but you had to go to this goofy shit. And I realized that one of the problems with these museums that have things that you think this shouldn't be a museum or that's crap or that is they're all a lot of the things are there because they're donated. Like, so you're not going to donate something that's awesome. You're going to donate something like, hey, here's this thing. I don't want it in my house because it's stupid or whatever, you know? So, I mean, they don't have to display it there. But once I realized that, I'm like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. It's not like they're holding this stuff up on a pedestal. It's like, this is the stuff they got to work with. You know? I mean, it's a museum that doesn't charge admission. And the stuff that's there is donated. Yeah, you're going to get what you're going to get. You know, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Then it kind of made sense, you know? I was super excited at Pompeii. They did a thing on Pompeii, and I don't know what it was. It was like a live reenacting thing on Pompeii, and it might have been 10 years ago when they did it, 12 years or something. Might have been on the History Channel or whatever. And it's really fucking sad. I find that kind of stuff really, really like, however you feel about the Romans, however you feel about people, I don't like seeing innocent people, stuff happen, like they're not dead, they're like dead in a fucked up way, you know? And I just don't, I just, it makes me really sad to see stuff like that. You know, like two people in an embrace. Oh, like, well, there was two prostitutes. I don't care what they were. They're people. I don't like seeing stuff like that. You know, it just it kind of hurt. It kind of hurts. You know, and I mean it's a natural disaster, but it's horrific. You know, pyroclastic flood. I mean, that's the stuff of nightmares. You know, but I haven't been there because we were going to go on a European cruise and it just didn't happen. But that was one of my stops. So if I ever make it to Italy, I'm definitely want to go there. But you know, I feel very different, and this isn't against the veterans or anything like that. But it's very different when you read or you see about people that are in a war and they've been through hell. Because at least the way I look at it is, at least many times, they're soldiers and they had a weapon and they had a chance to defend themselves. But when something is happening to innocent people that can't do anything about it, it's really sad. You know, it's really sad. So at least it's really sad to me. You know, Rome is good too. I'd be afraid to drive in Italy. I just I can just imagine. I can just imagine. And driving around these tiny little cars that fit in a, you know, inside my car. And I don't have a big car, but Fiats. Fiats on crack everywhere. Vespas and Fiats. How many more of these got to go? Oh man. Anyhow, so I told my wife when I got back, I said, you know, that really cheered me up looking at die-cast cars. So I think I need to make an effort when we go to Walmart. Just go over there and just take a look at some shit, you know? No one follows the lines. Well, so I drove in Spain. I was floored how well they drove. They drive better in Spain than here in the United States. You know, like respectful. You're on a highway and the trucks are not eating everybody. They stay under the speed limit. You know, I was really impressed. I was really impressed. I figured it was going to be like Miami. Oh no, Miami's probably like Italy. You know, one thing about driving is just observe the rules. Use your turn signals. Like tell people what your intention is. You know, that kind of stuff. Like I use my turn signals all the time. I don't pull out in front of people and then go freaking 10 miles an hour slower than the speed of the road. I think some people are either on drugs or they're just not paying attention. They're fooling with their peripherals. It used to be, oh, they're on the phone. Well, now phones, you don't have to be on the phone to be on it. You could be, you know, but they're playing a game or reading a book on their Kindle or whatever while they're driving. I don't know what the hell it is. You know, they're doing all this multitasking and they can't multitask. I was driving home from lunch yesterday, and for whatever reason, I wasn't listening to my book. I wasn't listening to music. I was just enjoying shifting the gears. And I'm in this podunk little town in the 45 mile an hour speed zone. And I see this, I'm next to a Ford F-150. And the guy's like, I notice he's like merging on me. He's like right next to me. He didn't know I was there. I'm like, I didn't have time to honk. I didn't have time to honk. I just like decelerated, downshifted, or whatever, and just let him go. I didn't even like honk or but it's like if I hadn't reacted, and I know some people that are like, I ain't moving. It's my right to be here. I said, I don't want to encounter. I don't want to file an insurance claim. Everybody gets bent on insurance. I don't need that. If there's a way I can prevent it, and if I can prevent an accident, I don't give a shit whose fault it is. I'm going to try to prevent the accident. I was hoping to go to Spain. Wanted to see where they make the swords. I did too, and that town was probably one of the biggest disappointments for me in Spain. I don't mean to say that it was the shittiest town in Spain. I just mean I was expecting it to be this cool, and it was not even close to that. And one of the biggest things about that town, Toledo, was that it had lots of little stores, and all the stores had the same merchandise as all the other stores. It was almost kind of like somebody went in there and said, "Hey, we got all this stuff that's made in China that's really cheap. You want us to supply all your stuff?" You're like, "See." So they did that. And then, there's exceptions to it, but a lot of the little stores were like that. So it was like, it didn't really matter. There wasn't a huge incentive to go in a bunch of different stores because they all had the same stuff. That was a little disappointing. And there was a place where they make the swords, but I think I read before I went there that they don't really do that anymore. So they're like, they show you the stuff up front and like they don't do a tour or anything like that. And I'm like, man, that would have been really cool to do, but and we're also on a day trip to there because it was 45 minutes from Madrid. We took a train to get there, but did a lot of walking. Now that town is really cool looking. I mean, it's worth going to. Just don't go for, don't have any expectations. But I like Spain so much. I don't. That's where I want to go back to. I really, really liked it. I really, really, really liked it. It was impressive. I was impressed how much I liked it. So the only thing I wouldn't have liked is how much walking you had to do if it was raining. If it was inclement weather, that's a pain in the ass. That's a pain in the ass getting wet, dealing with umbrellas every time you go because you do a lot of. I don't mind the walking part at all, but I mean, when we went, the weather was as cool, and it was clear skies. There was one day that was a little rainy, and already on that it was already kind of a pain in the butt on that one. But we pretty much had good weather all the time. But if you're there like in thunderstorms, yeah, you're gonna hate life. Because you want to go to this place, and the closest you can park is 12 blocks away, and you got to walk the rest of the different. It's like that's a pain in the ass. Germany has lots of castles. Lots of those places have lots of castles. Spain has a lot of castles too. Castles that are like utilitarian, like they're like made for freaking war, not like fancy schmancy looking. Okay, I gotta use little boy's room. I'll be right back. And what was really interesting about Europe was the different demographics, the different demographics of vehicles that they had in these places. Like when we went to London, there was a shitload of Toyotas and Kias. Kias or Hyundais? I think it was Kias. And a lot of them were those battery operated ones. Both of those. In Spain, there was all kinds of brands I'd never even seen before. And there was a fair amount of them. It wasn't like, one out of 100 was that. But there was like, Skoda. Like, oh, well, I already know where that's from. It's from Czechoslovakia or whatever they're called now. Because they used to make the Czech tanks. Skoda and Opel and, things you don't see here in the United States. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of, a lot of Renaults. Interesting. We ended up renting a vehicle. It was an Audi? Yeah, it was an Audi hatchback. It had some zip to it. Because I really wanted it to be a stick shift, but no, I can't drive it. Shouldn't talk that way, but that would have been a lot of fun driving a stick shift in Europe, but it'll be more underpowered than my own vehicle, so it'd be kind of, unfulfilling. I kind of talked myself out of it. I'm like, all right. Notice cars all have yellow headlights in France. Never noticed that. I would not drive anywhere that they drive on the British side. That's just asking for something to go sideways. If you're on a bunch of country roads and they're all, 2-lane roads, probably okay. But you get to a traffic circle or something like that, or in heavy traffic, I'm going to make the wrong decision. I've got decades of experience driving on the correct side of the road. I don't need to go and deal with that back-asswardness, Citroens. That's Citroen. I thought the Citroens were dead. Thought it was a dead brand. Nope, they're still Citroens. It's interesting. Yeah. The one company that had a pretty decent market share of vehicles here in the United States and just like disappeared. And I want to say decent market share in the United States in the area that I live in. Okay, because there's different demographics for different vehicles, different parts of the country. We got a big ass country, and they're probably different in Arizona as they are here. Probably not really different, but more different in like Washington State than here. But anyways, Volvos. Volvos used to be, and I don't mean the old Volvos that were the sedans that were square looking from the 70s, right? I'm talking about the ones that, from the 80s or whatever, not the 80s, the ones from the 90s and the 2000s. Like, they're just, used to be a lot of Volvo like SUVs in the 2000s. I just don't see them anymore. The rumor went around they're all made in China, owned by the Chinese, and next thing I know, nobody's driving any. I mean, they used to be a pretty big demographic. I mean, they weren't the dominant demographic, but they were, of SUVs of that type, I would say they would at least have been 25% of them. But I'll say it again. It's a shame that the most reliable, best vehicles on the planet aren't made in the United States or aren't domestic brands. It's a shame. I mean, it's a shame that I don't feel confident enough to buy a domestic vehicle. I don't. You're going to give me one. Okay, I'll take it. But I'm not gonna buy a domestic. I'm not gonna buy a domestic vehicle. Not maybe in a time machine. If I go back to like the 1960s or 1950s, where they're probably the most reliable ones. But nowadays, no. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it's reality. Although I did wake up one morning, read an article, and it was an article that obviously whoever was writing it had been paid off. Because what they basically said, it was like the most reliable vehicles sold in the United States. And it started off with, there might have been like 10 vehicles, and 7 of them were Chrysler products. And I'm like, no. No, absolutely not. It's just absolutely not. And it's a shame that's the case, but it was like, oh, Chrysler minivans are really, really reliable. Nope. Nope. You've been bought, my friend. You have been bought out. Lots of Waymo cars here. What the hell's a Waymo car? Waymo car. Waymo car. The self-driving car project. Oh, fuck that noise. You can keep that. Why would you go on a driverless car? What's wrong with you? I mean, maybe if you come with like an emergency brake or something, like you're a passenger, like, oh shit, this thing's about to do something stupid, you know? No, absolutely not. I don't even like freaking automatic headlights in the daytime. They're playing with my damn life. You keep that stuff over there on the Pacific and Mountain time zones. You guys can keep that stuff over there. You change them from Waymo to way better. It's way better if you keep it over there. Especially with how bad people are drivers. Like, man, I gotta like stay steps ahead of other people. Like, people are driving around not paying attention. I need to pay attention for them and drive my own vehicle. Yeah, I'd never heard of Waymo car. It said, I took a glance at this, and it said, what's the very first thing that came up? Hold on a second. It said, get a ride in San Francisco. The first thing I thought of is, oh, do they poop inside the car too? Hey, you say whatever you want, whether that's true or not. That's what San Francisco's known for over here. People pooping on the sidewalk. It may not be true, but that's what it's known as. The owner picks up the dog's poop, but they're the homeless people just take a shit on the sidewalk. Oh man, welcome to the Upside Down, California. It's funny. Our old house was bought by people that were moving from California, and it's funny because the very first thing that they did was they cut down some of our trees that we had forever. I'm like, wow, you really didn't fit in well in California. And they cut down 2 trees that we wouldn't have cut down. And I don't like trees up my ass. I want them away from the house, but they really didn't want any issues with them. mean, that's what San Francisco is known for, among other things. I mean, recently, that's what San Francisco is known for. You know, shitting on the sidewalk. Whether it's true or not, whether it's blown out of proportion, whether it's not, doesn't matter. Ask anybody, hey, what's San Francisco? Oh, the shitting on the sidewalk? Yeah. And I don't even watch the news, so I've gotten, trickle-down newscasts. I'm not even paying attention to news. Like, it's difficult for it to find me. Yeah, I went to San Francisco one time in the 80s, and we didn't have a good time. And we didn't encounter any, I wasn't hit on, whistled at, stepped on any poop, none of that. And we still didn't have a good time. My dad was always spoke really highly of California because it was the first place that he came in the United States to find a job. When he left his homeland in the early 60s, that's where he went. And he couldn't stop talking about it while we were growing up on how great California was. Well, it was probably great in 1962, because everything's new. What's the rest of the United States look on 1962? Freaking farms? Or, red brick hell, Hey, I would not go to California right now. They're all nuts there. Well, I wouldn't want to go to some place that has a lot of people. Big cities just attract, problems. The Hoffman says, how it's going. Were you ever accepted into that 3D printing group on Facebook you sent me? I didn't know it was in a group. Let's see. Let's see what I sent you. I sent you a link that I saw for the first time of where I saw those vehicles that you were talking about. I'm like, oh, this is right down your alley, man. This is right down your alley. I don't know that it was part of a group. If so, yeah, I guess I'm a member of that group. It's called, which makes me think it's been rebranded as something else. Or maybe I joined it a while ago. Yeah, 1/72 scale tanks, vehicles, resin, plastic, 3D print. I have a feeling this was a group that was called something else before because I don't remember specifically joining that group. But yeah, I'm a member of that group. You can't see that post? Yeah, it was about that new model. And we were talking about that. I'm like, oh, this has got you written all over it. And it looks pretty damn decent, especially the figure. I mean, it looks really good. And better, they're not cheap. They're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. They're nearly $20 for the tank, if I remember correctly. By the time you figure in, certainly by the time you figure in, figures, shipping. But we played our first game of in 7 years of Gaslands, and it went pretty well. But we kept it really, really basic. We each had 2 vehicles. They were all the same, equipped exactly the same. It was just kind of learning the mechanics. So, I like the group makes 3D dungeons for role playing. I don't have a problem with role playing games. Now, I haven't played a role playing game since probably 1985, when I was 14 years old. But the biggest problem I have with role-playing games is most people play it like it's all in your fucking head. People describe a situation like, okay, how about get one of them dry erase boards and get figures, and you don't have to do all the terrain. I mean, obviously do terrain seems better, right? But at least, so everybody's visualizing the same thing. Oh, that's too complicated. I said, well, that's not for me then, I'm I don't want to LARP or do any of that stuff. So, role playing isn't really my thing. With that said, I signed up at this convention that's coming up, not this weekend, but the next one of our biannual conventions. Last week in September, last week in April every year is when they have it at the same location. They've been having it for, I don't know, probably a decade, maybe even longer than that, about a decade. We've been having at this location. And there's hardly anything to sign up to play. There's hardly anything to sign up to play, so much that I ended up signed up to play in Don's naval game in one of the sessions, which I've played before. I haven't played this battle, but I've played it before, and I like it. And then the other 3 games I signed up for were, wait for it, Hero Quest, which everybody's familiar with. I've only played it once. I really liked it because that's the kind of role-playing game I want to play. Like, give me a figure, and we go around, and we roll dice, and you do funny accents at appropriate times when things happen with your character. Not the whole fucking time, Not when you're going across the street to go get food and you're a weirdo, I enjoy that part of it. So, hopefully the people I get to play with are wanting to have a good time. Because if not, then I won't play in any other sessions. I don't want to play games with people that just are not having a good time. You're like, oh, you can't say that in a dwarf's voice. That's going to offend dwarves. I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't want to be in this environment. They have an IGN Hago. Might have to get, I think they're the only people who make an IGN. I don't know that it's that different. Maybe the soldier that comes in it differently. The problem with IGN tanks is that I didn't know they made an IGN Hago. All the commies are IGNs, and they probably are going to be painted Battleship Gray. That's the problem with them. It's like they're not camouflaged. Of course, you can break all those rules. Doesn't really matter. A Hago is a great looking tank. It might be a colossal piece of shit, okay? It's better than no tank, okay? And it's cute as hell. And I'm sorry, cute as hell is important in my books. And it probably makes all kinds of creaky sounds, And I know the gun is aimed with a harness. Well, the Matilda's gun is aimed with a harness too, But it's a great looking tank. I'd say it's the best looking Japanese tank. Because you get something like a Shinhoto Chiha, looks good, but it's very traditional looking. A Hago is not traditional looking. It's got cute rivets. It's just cute, I don't want to be inside one. Of course, I don't want to be inside any tank. So yeah, I went looked at diecast cars because one of the teams that I want, I'm gonna build. I'm making my own. I haven't decided whether we're not going to follow the rules to the letter of the law because there's some of the stuff I don't really like the fluff that they came up with, right? But if we do decide to do sponsors and we do like the way that they're done in them, all we got to do is just change the name of the sponsors. Like, okay, you got these like ultra. They're one of the teams is called, I believe it's called Mishkin. I haven't looked at it in a long time. And they're basically like Russians that are into like technology, like ray guns and stuff like that. Okay, well I don't want to play that. I don't want to play, it's a silly made up name. Why don't we just call them Gremlins from the Kremlin, right? And it's the same thing, it's just a different type of thing. I haven't decided whether we're going to do that or not. Anyways, I have what I'm temporarily calling now the Asian Persuasion Team. So you're going to have, Datsun 240s and that kind of stuff that looks like that. I like to use vehicles that you can recognize what the vehicle is. It's just kind of cool, to do that kind of stuff. And they didn't have one. There's supposedly a 2020. There's a 2020 in the 2025 Hot Wheels. There's 3 of them actually in 3 different paint schemes. I don't care what paint scheme it is because it's going to get repainted. But there's 3 240s, the old school 240s from like the 70s. I think the 70s, maybe the early 80s. That's a good one. Um, Matchbox for the 2025 makes a Type R Integra, that kind of stuff. So you have Japanese themed vehicles. Same thing with the Germans. Same thing with the Italians. Used to play Hero Quest until our party in a room with no other doors, and the entrance caved in behind us. Well, that sounds like a GM that's just trying to fuck you. That's not cool. The relationship with the GM needs to be what's the fancy word I'm thinking of? Symbiotic, right? Like you can't just kill people and you can't just take it easy on them. It's got to go both ways. If it's too easy, nobody's going to want to play. It's too easy. If it's too hard, it's too much work. So it's got to be somewhere in between it. It's got to be symbiotic. Well, I'm nearly done with this color, so you guys made me stay on here twice as long as I'd planned. That's excellent. I played Hero Quest one time with someone who had everything painted. It looked great. This is a guy I know that actually is a pretty good painter, and he had everything painted. And he handed me a character to play that I'd never played before, and that's a dwarf. I've never played a dwarf. I have no interest in playing dwarves. The only point in playing a dwarf is you could do a funny accent the entire game, right? Other than that, I don't want to play somebody that's, a stump. But I embraced it, and the next thing you know, I'm making jokes when we're playing about anything is about how drunk I am, how how I have to use a step stool for everything, and about the size of my kickstand, and it was freaking hilarious. I had a great time, and so did everybody else. But dwarf for the kickstand. All your friends want it easy. You got some younger generation friends or what? Now, some of these guys want to play things that are too hard. I want things to be challenging. I don't want it to be a pushover. I don't want it to be predictable. But man, I don't want it to be too difficult. Everything you're fighting is like a fucking bullet sponge. It's like, man, I got work to go back to the next day. This needs to be, distraction, not just a pain in the ass. Just because you live in mom's basement and you've never worked a day in your life doesn't mean you need to make the game harder for the rest of us. Yeah, that's what I say. One guy I used to play with, he wanted everything was too easy. He wanted everything that was easy, repetitive, and predictable. I'm like, well, there's no point in doing that. It's not that I want it to be difficult, but it needs to be challenging. Ever play Paranoid? No. This German Italian deck I made has NTO has not been losing. I think I made a pretty decent one this time around. I made a deck with a draft that I don't win a single fucking game with. And it involved around Intel, the polls, and I just couldn't get anywhere. It was a lot of fun to play. I did not control the flow of the battle, if that makes sense. If you watch any of my DVA videos, that's a really important thing. You need to control, you're doing all the calls and they're reacting to you. No, I was doing all the reactions. It had some cool cards. So what I like to try to do is there'll be like missions of what you got to do, like play 30 British cards, or win 3 times as the Russians as allies, win 3 times as the Japanese as allies. So I'm like, I don't want to create a deck out of nowhere. I might as well do a draft because I get a chance of getting more packs. So I'll draft and we'll see one of those things I get. And I'm like, oh, I got British as the main one. Cool. All I got to do is get Japanese as the option for the ally. And I didn't. I was like Americans, Russians, or Poles. And I'm like, the 2 things I needed to get was like, I think Germans as allies, win some wins with Germans as allies, or some wins with Japanese as allies. And I didn't get either one of those 2. It's like, okay, well, at least I can play 30 British cards. And I just didn't get anywhere. It never went anywhere. I had some decks that have been brutal, but I like doing the draft because it's like, what do you want, this or this? I want that one. Okay, and then you move to the next one. But if you're picking from everything, it's just too easy for people to go and use their crutch army, and then the next thing you know, you're fighting somebody who always plays this one army this way, and it's just like boring. Like, I don't want to do that. I want some people to think outside the box. It would be like if you had a Magic tournament, right? I don't do Magic, but I played stuff like Hearthstone and stuff like that. Well, and this cards is that way. I wouldn't mind playing one of those type of games theoretically. If it was everybody brings $20, you use that to buy cards, and that's what you use. But to have things that are already figured out, that somebody's looking all online and try to figure all the little nooks and crannies of how not to win and lose, that's just a little too like boring. I don't want to play with people like that. For the win 3 times, you can play against the AI. I played the AI the other day, and it was a lot tougher than I thought. I figured, it was going to be a cakewalk. It was not a cakewalk. I won, but it was not a cakewalk. I was really surprised. Because some things against the AI are really a cakewalk. Like if you play World of Warships on the computer against the AI, it's a cakewalk. I mean, you could really dominate the computer. If you play against the AI in War Thunder with ships, you could dominate the AI in War Thunder. Now, if you get a plane and try to bomb one of those ships, the AA that comes out of the AI is ridiculously accurate and deadly. But like ship to ship, you can outperform the computer by a fair margin. Paranoia is future role play where you travel along a base and the base computer's gone crazy. I've not, but I've played. So it's basically a HAL scenario. Yeah, I have not. I knew some people that really liked that game, but I've not played it. I usually go with themes. I like this new deck. I wanted Alpine and aircraft, and then you decide on what orders you want to focus on. Yeah, I decided to do Intel, and I enjoyed it a lot, but it wasn't a winning deck. But I enjoyed playing it a lot. I just never got a winning game, you know? And creating a deck also allows you to try new cards that you haven't bought, right? Because you're just doing a draft. It's picking, do you like your left hand better or your right hand better? I like the right hand better. All right, you get one right hand, that kind of thing. As opposed to, choosing from 120 cards and trying to come up with, 40 that you like. I think this one might need another coat. Then we're done. Which card game is this? Well, it's creatively called Cards with a K. And you can play it on the computer, and you can play it on your mobile device, or you can play it on both, and you can buy cards, or you could play it for free. which is what I do. And the art on the cards is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. That's the reason I play it, to look at the art. And it sounds crazy, but you know. And almost all the art looks good. I think this may need a coat. The only thing is the game doesn't seem to be very popular with Asian players. I'd say probably 90% of the players are from Asia, or at least they have an Asian name. You know, I guess it's a name. I don't make out. They got these characters up there. You can't make out what the hell they are. I had one guy that was being friendly, like, all right, I'll be friendly with the guy. It was like, oh, good luck and have fun. And then every single time he played his hand, he said the same thing. Have a good time, be lucky, have fun. He was like spamming that. I'm like, all right, this guy's, you can be too friendly. Yeah, I really like the game. It's really attractive. It's really attractive. It's a really attractive game. I remember they announced the shit out of it. I don't know anybody who's playing it other than you. Um, Maybe if I spoke Chinese, I'd know a lot more people. All right, so this is where we're going to stop on this. And what time is it? I think I got time to play some War Thunder. I gotta go in there and get my free thing. So I feel like I'll play some Japanese planes. So unlock some Japanese planes, I think. All right, folks. Well, we'll see you guys next time, and we'll continue. Now we'll leave this all back, and I think these will end up looking really good. That brown color that I ended up painting this one, which is just as a test. Of course, it's going to have some rust to it, but that is a really good color for like rusty iron to start off with. And all that is the burnt umber. So that turned out pretty well. An Ancients Time game on it would be good, but only if the art looked good. Only if the art looked good.